Checking on network status. Everything is green. We have our green checks there. And we hit the word next again. Okay, now we're on step 1 of 4, and the Linksys software is asking us to disconnect our computer from our internet connection. And here we see our internet connection, which is this gray wire here, and it's assuming that you've already had connected your computer to your ISP. And now we're going to put the Linksys router in between that and your computer. So it's asking us to disconnect from the computer and actually stick it into the yellow port of our Linksys router, which says Internet. So let's go ahead and connect that internet connection, make that internet connection with the gray wire to your ISP. And we're going to click Next. Okay, and it says connect the end of the included Ethernet cable to the blue number 1 of your new Linksys router. So here, this cable is provided. It is a straight RJ45 connection, and all we have to do is, it says right here, to the blue port of port 1 of your Linksys router. So we're going to do that. And it tells us to connect it to the PC. And on this case here, once again, on the Toshiba 805 series computer, we see that there is an RJ45 connection. Now, we are trying to, once again, we are trying to make a wireless connection, but first you have to connect from the computer to the router wired. Okay, so now we have the computer hooked up to port number 1. We have the internet connection hooked up to our simulated ISP. In this case, we're using a Yahoo BB ADSL broadband router for our sample. Of course, we're not really connected to the internet. We're just doing this for demonstration purposes. Notice that Linksys has not told us to power up the router at this time. I believe that's going to be the next step. Going back to the software, we have the PC connected to the router now. Hit Next. Now we're on step 3 of 4, and it is asking us to power the router with the provided power adapter. I'm going to go ahead and stick the power cord into the power slot of the router. So now we have all 3 connections, the power, the blue cable, and the Ethernet going to your ISP, the gray cable. We'll hit Next. And now it is asking us to power the Linksys router. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the router, and we're going to look at the front end of the Linksys router itself. You notice at first it's going to be blinking, and you'll see that it's going to check the cable, and you can see the wireless light blinking. You can see port 1 showing activity, which means that it is sensing the computer's thing. And it says, and going back to the screen here, it says waiting for the router. Now it says it's checking for the network. So it's checking the network. And it says right here, the administrative password protects your router from unauthorized access for security reasons. You should change the router password from its default setting. And here we see that it's very typical for Linksys to, let me go ahead and put this router down backwards because this is the most important part right here. Here we see the typical password for a Linksys router is admin, lowercase admin. We're going to go ahead and change it a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and put admin01 just to make it a little bit different. So now we have the router password as admin01. Now we're going to go back here and click Next. Now it's going to go with, it's going to give you an SSID. It says your wireless network's name is known as your SSID. So let's go ahead and change this to Linksys, and once again, I'll put 01. So now our wireless network is called Linksys 01. I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. Okay. Now it's giving you a choice. You can use the higher security. We talked about WPA and WPA2. And it says it's recommended for wireless computers and devices. For older wireless devices, it may not be supported. Since we're installing the new Lexmark model wireless printer, I think it's better to go WPA2. And I think for most people, they're going to be doing that. We're not going to use WEP, WEP128, and we certainly don't want to run this router open. Here, this is very important here, it says enter a security key of 8 to 64 characters or use the randomly generated security key below. We will use the randomly generated security key in this sample here, and we're going to use WPA2 as our network security, which is high security. Once again, we're going to use the default security key below. This number is very important. If I was installing another type of router, I would certainly write this number down, but in this case here, we're just going to go ahead and use the default. Let me go ahead and hit Next, and we should see it going to configure the router. So now it's talking about the router supports easy and secure feature called Wi-Fi Protect Setup. It's going to use to connect to the wireless. So now through the wired connection of port 1, it is going to set up your router. Click Next to continue. That's just an informational screen. It's telling you that your router password is admin01. Your network is called Linksys01. And we are using the higher security, the WPA2, and the security key. We're going to hit Next. It's going to tell you that it's going to save the information to your desktop, and it put a text thing there. Now it's configuring the router, so there's going to be a little bit of activity on the router, and this is going to take a little bit of time. Now on this screen here, it's telling us that the network is configured, and it's giving us congratulatory remarks. Don't disconnect everything. Just follow the screens. Continue until we hit finish. So it says congratulations, but don't assume that this is the last screen. Click Next to close the wizard. Okay, and it says select a location. This is Windows. This is a Windows screen now, and we are working from the home, not officially in Office. I wouldn't go public domain because it's going to use the high security to lock you out. You're not in the work environment, you're in your home environment. Go ahead and select Home. And Windows is now going to ask you permission to log this wireless network in. And it says network 2 is private. And we hit close. And that is pretty much the installation of our Linksys wireless